everyone will raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you are now about to give concerning this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, under penalty of perjury?
Yes, I swear.
Okay, thank you. All right. Can you explain to us why that alone wasn't enough to dispel the alarm?
So, without any way to verify it, I have no way of stating this being any kind of legitimate form. Anybody can sit on a Google or Word document and make a Word document. It also had several errors in it that I found to be strange.
How you doing, Officer Hall?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Pretty good, sir. Pretty good. She covered your name and employment. And who's your lieutenant for the Warner Robins Police Department?
Lieutenant Tristan.
Lieutenant Tristan. Is he in the courtroom now?
He is.
Can you point to him? Thank you. Do you remember a call or requesting service at 200 Graver Street in reference to a suspicious vehicle?
Yes.
You did. Do you remember if it was a 911 call or not?
It was.
Is there a state code or a state loitering violation?
There is.
Okay. Is there a municipal code for the city of Warner Robins for loitering violation?
There is.
Okay. I'd like to present a copy of that code to you. Does this look like the code section for Warner Robins?
It does.
Is this the code section you arrested me for?
Yes.
In the reference to the highlighted portion here, was the church currently having any form of worship service during this day?
No.
What was your justifiable reason and reasonable concern that I was causing any alarm or immediate concern for the safety of persons or property in the vicinity?
A 911 dispatch.
Did I take flight upon the appearance of a law enforcement officer?
You did not.
Did I identify myself to you?
You did.
In this code, is there a timetable or a specific amount of time for any person to present an identification or to dispel any concern why they are there?
No, it does not give a time.
Did I show you a valid Georgia driver's license?
You did.
Did I show you my Georgia State PI license?
You showed me a form of identification, yes.
Did I manifestly endeavor to conceal myself or object?
No.
Did you afford me the opportunity to dispel any alarm or immediate concern?
Yes.
My presence was warranted, as you testified earlier, and explained what my conduct was in the neighborhood, did I not?
It does not give you the permission to be a closed private property business after alarms have been presented. The best way to dispel said alarm is for people leaving the area.
Okay, so the Warner Robins Police Department can speak on behalf of private businesses?
No, sir.
Okay. And is this I'm sorry. Other than the 911 call that came through that was dispatched to you, were there any other calls about my presence at the church location?
No.
This information being true, as we went through the actual code, that none of the elements fit the crime, do you think I dispelled the alarm or immediate concern?
No.
Can you tell all the reasons why it did not dispel the concern or alarm I was there?
Well, I was dispatched to 911 because the lady was concerned that someone was watching her property. When I walked up onto your vehicle, I was able to see through plain view that you had a laptop and a video recorder. I was not able to verify on scene that you were a private investigator, and I did not have any of that information on me at the time to verify. Or I had your ID, but I had no way of verifying on scene that I was aware of. When I asked you to leave initially, you said that you would gladly leave if you needed to. And then upon the second time that I asked you if you needed to leave, you said you would rather go to jail. At that point in time, I realized that you were not going to comply with my lawful orders, and then so you were detained in the department and charged with crime.
Okay. So a citizen, a member of the public, can tell you when to take somebody to jail?
No.
Why did you take me to jail when I told you to take me to jail?
Because by you saying take me to jail showed me that you were not going to comply and leave the property. You said you'd rather go to jail than leave the property. And since the in front of you, that's what I did.
What state code or municipal code, is there a municipal or a state code or any code at all that says that you have to take me to jail upon me demanding you to take me to jail?
I didn't take you to jail because you demanded to take me to jail. I took you to jail because you said that you weren't going to leave and that you would rather go to jail. So I decided at that point, in order to dispel that alarm,
dispelled any reasonable suspicion, which I gave you my driver's license, you ran my plate, you just testified you saw a laptop and my camera in there, and I stated I was a private investigator, and we had a 911 call that called in and said somebody could be watching me due to a workman's comp claim. As a reasonable officer, would you have took a step back and connected those two dots and maybe did a little bit more investigating before making an arrest?
With the information that I had in front of me at the time, and the statements that were given to me, the information that I had, I determined that the best course of action was to detain and arrest me.
You said you came in contact with approximately 10 private investigators.
Around, yes.
How do they provide credentials?
Usually the part that gets to the credentials never gets that far. Usually when I arrive on scene and speak to a private investigator, they go, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is who I'm looking at. I go, hey, well, I got a call, I need you to move along, and they do.
So they have to move along because you tell them to?
If they're sitting on private property,
So you speak for private property is what you're saying?
no, sir, it's a law that I'm allowed to enforce to dispel alarm, so the citizens feel safe in their homes.
Does the city of Warner Robins have an agreement with the church at 200 Draper Street that you can enforce laws there?
Yes.
They do.
By having a business inside the city of Warner Robins, you're in there, you're under the agreement with Warner Robins police officers to enforce crime or enforce laws on your property.
So you have a copy of that agreement signed that you can step onto private property and enforce laws.
No, sir.
So you're telling me, and you're telling the court, that as a police officer of Warner Robins, you can step onto private property and tell people to leave just because somebody made a phone call.
No, sir, I told you to leave so that you would dispel the alarm of loitering and prowling. It is not because of the phone call. The phone call was the alarm. You were unable to dispel my alarm with any information that you were provided on scene. So I determined that to dispel said alarm, that you needed to leave the scene so that people felt safe in their homes. You told me that you would rather go to jail than leave, so in order to get you to leave the scene and dispel said alarm, you were detained and arrested for dispelling the alarm that was called from the first person.
So just because you tell them to leave, they have to leave?
If they are on private property and causing such alarm, then a 911 call is issued, and I need to respond to it. To dispel said alarm, if I believe that is going to be the best course of action, that is the action which I ask to take.
Okay. Moving on. Isn't it very important that a police report be as accurate as possible?
Yes.
Have you ever had any problems with your reports in the past, such as missing key information, grammar, spelling, chain of events?
Yes, when I was very early on in my FTO phase.
And how many times were you recycled in FTO?
Once.
For how many weeks?
For one phase.
And how many weeks is one phase?
I believe it's a total of 1 month.
1 month. So
Yes, sir, yes.
4 weeks we can agree.
Yes.
Okay, all right, sir. In your report, you wrote you spoke with caller Sheila Jenkins. Nowhere in the report it mentions fear of safety or property, does it?
No.
Did you speak with Sheila before or after the arrest?
After.
But you just testified that I haven't violated any of the elements of the crime as I was questioning you as we read through the...
No, you did. I stated multiple times that due to a 911 call, which would be alarm, they felt the need to contact Warner Robins Police Department and have an officer come out and speak to you. You were unable to dispel that alarm by any information you provided to me on scene, and then stated that you would not leave the property, which was the other option for you to dispel said alarm. You were then detained, issued your citation, and arrested.
Okay. So, if you had to do this all over again, our interaction again, would you do it the same way or would you change anything?
I would do it exactly the same way.
Okay. There should be probable cause before making an arrest, correct?
Yes.
And what was your probable cause for arresting me?
Probable cause for the facts and circumstances that would make me believe that the crime has been is being will be committed is that you were sitting on private property, making an alarm, which means that someone called 911 or had some sort of alarm to contact the Warner Robins Police Department, which had happened. We were about to dispatch to that location, and then you were unable to dispel said alarm, and then refused to leave the property, which would have been my solution to dispelling said alarm.
So you said I failed to dispel the alarm, correct?
Yes.
What more could I have done to dispel the alarm? You ran my tag. I gave you my valid driver's license. I gave you a valid private investigator's license. it corroborated with what the 911 call, what the 911 call stated. It corroborates with what's in your CAD messages. Wouldn't a reasonable officer, such as ones that I've dealt with before, take a step back and go, hey, this guy might be telling the truth. This is what they call it. And then start putting kind of 2 and 2 together instead of, he told me to arrest him, so I'm just going to arrest him.
I don't believe you gave me a question there.
Do you think it's reasonable to take a step back and put 2 and 2 together? Since none of the elements fit that crime.
So the facts and circumstances that I have when I took you and detained you and arrested you is that you were unwilling to dispel said alarm. Do you believe that you dispelled said alarm by giving me those documentations and I was unable to verify anything other than the fact that you are who you say you were, and that did not dispel the alarm because you still had no lawful business to be on that property, and she believed that she was being watched? To dispel said alarm for you to move along would have been the solution that I chose, and I asked you twice. Prior to the call, from the video camera footage, you stated that you would leave the property if you needed to. And then when I asked you after I returned your property back to you, you said you would rather go to jail.
Is it illegal for me to change my mind?
No.
Is it illegal to watch somebody?
Yes, that would be something.
How does a private investigator in said neighborhood on official business, watching a claimant, been there for 4.5 hours, seen multiple traffic in the neighborhood and everything, people walk by, people on bicycles, nobody else called, did they, Officer Hall?
No.
There was only one phone call, wasn't it, Officer Hall?
Yes.
And nowhere in that phone call it stated the person was in fear for her life, property, or personal safety, was it?
Not from my CAD notes, but from the earlier recording that you played, she did say that it was very strange and she felt unsafe.
She felt uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable.
Is uncomfortable against the law?
No.
So feeling uncomfortable wouldn't fit the crime, would it?
It is, because she felt the need to call 911, which meant she felt fear for herself. Okay? Which means that there was an alarm that needed to be dispelled.
Do you feel that you need any more training on the loitering laws, either state or municipal?
No.
After your testimony today, if you had to do this arrest all over again, would you do it?
No. Or, wait,
So you wouldn't make
rephrase
the
that
arrest?
question.
Well, he's already answered that.
I've already answered.
Okay.
I would do the exact, in that scenario, if
Okay.
you still refuse to leave the property, you would still be detained, arrested, and issued a citation for loitering around.
Okay. All right. No, nothing further, Your Honor.
Did you ask him what he was doing at the closed business?
Yes.
And when you asked him what he was doing at the closed business, what was his first response?
Just chill.
After that, what was his first response?
He asked me if he had committed a crime.
Okay. So he didn't tell you immediately that I'm a private investigator on official business?
No.
Did he ask you, I guess after you explained why you were making contact with him, did he give you his ID at that point?
He did.
Okay. And did he give you any more detail about what he was doing?
He made statements that said he was investigating something in the area, and then when asked any further, he stated that was part of it.
Okay. So based on the information that he gave you, did you feel as if the alarm that you had received from dispatch had been dispelled?
No.
Even after he handed you the credentials, what did you feel as if he had dispelled the alarm?
No.
Is that why you asked him to move along?
Yes.
State your name, sir.
Lieutenant Eric Patricia.
And what is your position with the Warner Robins Police Department?
I'm a patrol lieutenant.
And is Officer Gregory Hall, badge 4182, one of your officers? The report reads that the way Officer Hall wrote his report in his narrative, it reads that he made the arrest and then went and gathered evidence. Shouldn't it be the officer gathers evidence to develop probable cause and then make an arrest?
I mean, that would be the idea, but I think he was just following that.
So you would agree they should go gather evidence for probable
I would
cause?
say that would be, well, if he's going, depends what he's going for. He was getting it for loitering, he wasn't getting it for stalking or criminal trespass.
Okay. So would you agree that after Officer Hall explained to me that I violated a crime, I gave my ID to him?
From the video, yeah.
Okay. So, but I didn't provide my ID before he said I committed a crime, correct?
Right. I don't believe.
Okay. So is that against the law to not give a law enforcement officer an ID if there's no crime?
Well, if you ask you to identify yourself, you need to identify yourself.
Even if there's no crime present?
He was investigating.
I'm talking about before he told me there was a crime, because he asked me for my ID, and then I didn't give it to him. And then I asked if there's a crime present. He said yes, loitering. Then I provided my ID, correct?
I believe so.
Okay, so what law is it that I have to give a law enforcement officer an ID just because they asked for it?
When he's trying to identify you, and you refuse to identify yourself, if he's investigating loitering, you're obstructing.
Okay, but then when he told me about the crime, I gave my ID, correct? Okay, so we're in agreement with that then.
Yeah.
Okay.
After he told you why he was there, what for?
Okay, okay. What exactly is an admin error when it comes to reports and paperwork?
An admin error is basically if an officer writes something, he can misspell something, he can mistake something. People make mistakes when they make errors with the right reports.
Have you ever read a report by Officer Hall that had factual errors in them?
I mean, I can't recall. I'm sure I read a lot of reports.
In your opinion, is it okay that errors on reports, because it'll just go to court and get figured out?
No, I believe you should try to catch it if you can, but when you're reading a bunch of reports every day, you're gonna miss some stuff.
I like to play that phone call. That snippet of the phone call that I sent you.
That's fine.
It's okay, because you said otherwise in the phone call that we had earlier that it's okay to make admin errors and it'll just go to court. Is that you, sir? That is? Okay, so I'm going to restart it.
Even if that's the booking sheet or that's what the booking fills out, do you see that there's no consistency? I can see that there were a few admin errors, but I wouldn't say not consistent. But do you realize that these admin errors and these errors affect people's lives?
So repeat your question again?
You said that there shouldn't be any admin errors and it should get caught
That's not what I said.
by y'all.
I said if your complaint, when your defense to loitering is there's admin errors in the paperwork, then that's what you need to use as a defense when you go to court.
But I brought those admin errors up to you, didn't I?
You brought up an admin error on the booking sheet.
And on the narrative of his report, the same thing that I gave Ms. Williams, did I?
What?
The narrative of the report that he wrote.
I don't understand the question.
Did I tell you that Officer Hall made any errors on his report?
You told me that there was an error reference to, if I can remember, that about a gun in the car.
Okay, so
Didn't
that,
have a gun or something like that.
yeah, so that's an error. Would you agree that's an error?
Right, but I don't believe he didn't put that in the report, right?
So why didn't the error get fixed before coming to court instead of just telling me to use that as a defense in court? Since I brought it up to you ahead of time.
Error in
you
the
errors.
report?
Yes, sir.
Because then it would be changing the report. And then
Okay.
you would say, why did you go to the report?
Okay. But you admitted that he made errors in his report.
I don't understand. What errors are you talking about? As far as the gun?
The admin errors. You said it's okay for the police to make admin
I
errors.
didn't say it was okay. I said that that is your defense. If your defense is I'm not guilty of loitering because there's errors in the report, then I said, then that's what you need to make.
Okay, I understand,
So I'm
that.
not,
I'm
I
not,
don't want to alter the report after it's already been signed and sent in, because then you would say, what you said, also,
could there a supplemental report be done
it's possible.
to correct the errors?
Because
Why wasn't that done?
you didn't request it.
But I told you that there were errors, so shouldn't, as a lieutenant, as a supervisor with the Warner Robins Police Department, and Officer Hall supervisor, being a good leader to him, have him do a supplemental report and say, hey, these errors were brought up to me, we need to fix this, and I agree with you, we can't change the report, but you said, yes, we could do a supplemental because the narrative, the way the narrative flows in his report that I brought up, it flows in a chain of events that's out of sequential order. It looks like as if everybody was on the scene out there, but yet he didn't put it in the report that he made contact afterwards.
I mean, could we have done that? Sure.
No, I
But
don't.
we did.
So you didn't fix the admin errors after, or the errors in the report after I brought it up
We
to
didn't do
you?
a supplement.
So you didn't fix the errors after I brought it up to you?
I don't know what errors we're talking about at this point. I heard something about a gun, I heard something about when he called the pastor of the church. You know, if you're alleging specific admin errors, then we need to,
Okay, no, I'm sorry,
we
Your
need
Honor.
to narrow it down. So
Okay, I'm sorry, Your Honor. Let's start with the gun first. Let's start with that first.
Yeah.
On the report, it was labeled that I had a gun.
On the supplement. Was it an original or a supplement?
You just said y'all didn't do any supplement reports.
No. Officer, you didn't do a supplement.
Didn't you just tell me none were done?
I said no supplement to fix the errors.
Okay,
He did a supplement report.
okay. To fix that there was
No,
no.
he did the supplement report on what he did. On sync.
Okay, we're talking about the gun.
Right.
So why wasn't that error fixed in the supplement report to be, because there was.
What area, I mean, can you show me what area you're talking about?
Yes.
You're talking about on this part of the report where it says.
Yes, sir, and I pulled another random one, a couple of random ones to open record for someone that did not have a firearm, and it said none.
Okay.
I'm just curious why that,
I don't have an answer for that.
okay.
I still don't know what error we're talking about.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. On the report, it says I had a firearm, but I didn't have a firearm. That's an error. Okay. Were you aware, now we're moving on away from the firearm, let's move off of the firearm. Go to the narrative of Officer Hall's report. Do you have a copy of it, LT, or do you need to get you one?
I got it.
Yeah. Were you aware that his narrative was missing much key information? Let's start with chronological order of events. So, at the bottom, the last two paragraphs, or the last three paragraphs, but the two where it says I spoke with, those two paragraphs, doesn't that look like it reads that Officer Hall spoke with these two on the scene?
I mean, it could be looked at that way, yes.
But yet he called them, correct? Afterwards. So shouldn't that be in the report, that he followed up afterwards, instead of making it look like he spoke with them on the scene?
I mean, it would make it more clear, I would imagine.
Okay. And Officer Hall has had problems with report writing in the past, right?
I mean, he's not the best report writer, but he's not the worst.
And he's also need to study his laws, correct?
We all need to study our law. We always gotta keep up.
Trying to see if I can tell you where this spot is here. I advise Mr. Pickering without permission from the business and not telling me what he is doing at this location, he needs to leave to dispel any alarm from that area. It's the second paragraph down where it starts, I advise Mr. Pickering.
Gotcha.
So I advise Mr. Pickering that without permission from the business and not telling me, So do I have to tell Officer Hall everywhere I go in Warner Robins to do a private investigator's case, private investigation case?
No,
So,
not everywhere.
I'm sorry?
Not everywhere, but if an officer comes and they're investigating possible criminal activity, I would imagine he would as a private investigator.
I don't, no, LT, I don't have to tell
I
Officer
didn't
Hall
say you had to.
where I'm investigating. And you understand that the private investigator's cases, like the case that I was working on, that's private, that I don't have to disclose any of that information to him. So, I'm sorry, by law, would I have to?
No, I wouldn't imagine you'd have to tell them every detail.
Okay, so me telling Officer Hall what he put in his report, he asked, I said it was private, correct? In your belief, do you believe Officer Hall had probable cause to make an arrest that day?
I believe at the time of the arrest,
Do you think I dispelled any alarm in that area?
I don't believe so. I believe that once he told you to leave the area, that there was no longer any reason for you to be there. You were already burned, so it was time, you should have left.
So who decides when a private investigator is burned to leave, me, the private investigator, or a law enforcement officer?
If you're burned,
Yes, sir.
the officer had told you to leave. You needed to leave. And you said, lock me up, so that's what you did.
Okay.
And I get it.
Is it-
A lot of people up because they don't want to be locked up there. I understand what you're saying.
So if a police officer asks somebody to leave, they just have to leave. Dude, that's a violation, right? That's a violation of the law.
Or they have no legal reason to be there. There's no reason to be there.
I'm glad you said that, LT. I had a legal reason to be there.
Well, you
Private
can
property.
testify
Okay.
about your legal reason to
Okay.
be here, just ask him questions.
Okay, sorry, Your Honor. I'm sorry. So would you think that you having 21 years of law enforcement experience, and I've seen this with a lot of other law enforcement, but I'm not going to go out on that. Would you think that maybe take a step back and try to connect both dots? Because as Officer Hall stated, I had a laptop and I had a camera in my car. That's something private investigators don't carry with them. And do you think a reasonable officer would have stepped back and put two and two together that no elements fit this crime?
I think at what he knew at the time and what the circumstances were, I think he knew what the problem was.
Do you think he should have called you first before making the arrest?
No, an officer can't go calling their supervisor every time they're making an arrest.
No, I understand that, but do you think for this incident, he should have called you?
No. It's just a normal suspicious person.
His suspicion of crime.
Like ARS, it's ARS for an officer to go and see what the suspicion is, right?
You can, yes. I guess my question is suspicion of crime?
In and of itself,
Yes, sir.
no.
Okay, so it was reported as a suspicious vehicle, correct?
Watching a person,
Okay,
or watching a person.
okay.
And you've seen the video, have you reviewed the video outside of court as part of being his supervisor?
I watched some of it, but not in review.
Okay, all right. But you did see the video today? Okay, so you saw when Officer Hall walked up to the vehicle that was occupied by Mr. Pickron, that he introduced himself and asked Mr. Pickron immediately what he was doing.
Yeah.
And Mr. Pickron's response was, "I'm chilling."
Right.
And at some point, you saw Officer Hall say, "Well, can you move my back to this closed church?"
Right.
And Mr. Pickron's response was not, "I am an investigator, investigating a case." That was not his initial response, right?
Right.
Eventually, he did say, "I am an investigator," and handed over his driver's license and his ID.
Correct.
But he asked first, did he have to?
Right.
Do you understand why that might make a law enforcement officer uncomfortable if they had been dispatched to a call of a suspicious vehicle?
Yeah.
Nothing further.
Back to the loitering, the municipal loitering code. Back to that, sir. What else could I'm sorry. What else? I'm sorry. Let me back up really quick. Do you remember when I put the complaint? I filed a complaint against Officer Hall. You stated that you didn't watch the entirety of the body cam video, correct? After I filed that complaint against him, why didn't you investigate and watch that whole body cam footage?
Because after you filed the complaint, the complaint went upstairs.
But aren't you his immediate supervisor?
Yes, but since I was his supervisor, I said
Is there a law that says I have to give my ID upon request for no crimes being committed?
if an officer is investigating criminal activity,
Right.
if he's there for criminal activity, and he has to ID you, right? Because that's what we do in case take off, take it out, shoot us, or something like that. You give the ID.
So did I provide ID to Officer Hall?
After first telling you you were their children, and then saying, do I have to? Yes, we need to.
So is me telling Officer Hall I'm just chilling, is that a violation of the law?
The truth.
It doesn't matter. That's irrelevant.
I mean, you're being deceived.
But that doesn't matter, that's irrelevant.
Well, you can make that argument.
Okay.
That also caused alarm, obviously, with the phone.
Okay, so I provided my driver's license, I provided my Georgia PI credentials, he's read my tag. What else could I have done to dispel the alarm?
Left the property.
What else besides leaving the property have I done to dispel the alarm?
Get out of the car and say, take it down, I guess, so you know.
Okay, so I want to interject right here really quick. When I asked him what else could I have done to dispel the alarm, he said, get out of the car and say, take me to jail. So dispelling the alarm means get out of my vehicle and say, take me to jail. Listen to this very carefully. I'm going to replay it.
Okay, so I provided my driver's license, I provided my Georgia PI credentials, he's read my tag. What else could I have done to dispel the alarm?
Left the property.
What else besides leaving the property have I done to dispel the alarm?
Get out of the car and say, take it down, I guess, so you know. I don't know what else to say, I don't know what else to give.
So me getting out of my car, telling him to take me to jail, that dispelled the alarm.
No,
You just stated that,
I
sir.
didn't. I mean, you wanted to go to jail, I guess, all I can tell you, sir, is you got out of the vehicle, you went to jail, you wouldn't leave there,
Because there was no lawful reason for me to leave the
the
area.
officer told you to.
Just because he tells me it doesn't mean you have to do it.
Well, that's your argument. That's your argument.
So, me telling Officer Hall to take me to jail was a lawful command.
No, the lawful command was for you to leave the area or you were going to jail.
Okay, back to what I said. You still haven't given me an answer other than what you said. When I said, what can I do to dispel, what else could I have done to dispel the alarm? You said,
Nothing
You could-
besides leaving, because,
but you just said you could have got out of the car and said, take me to jail, and that's what you did.
no, that's
Mr.
what you
Pickering,
did.
he's already answered that question. He said at that point he could have left,
Okay.
and that would have dispelled. And the witnesses already been sworn in.
How you doing? State your full name, please. Did anyone ever tell you that you could become under surveillance by an insurance company?
Yes, he said if I had any problems or if I suspected anything, to make sure I contact the police, yes, he did.
So around the beginning of June 2022, do you remember calling the police in reference to a vehicle parked at that church on Draper Street?
Yes, I
Did anyone ever tell you to be aware of strange vehicles in your neighborhood in relation to your insurance claim?
No, sir. The reason why I was concerned is because in that area, I stay in a good, nice area. So all of us know each other and all that. So we always watch our surroundings anyway. But for a truck to be sitting at a location that we know nobody's supposed to be sitting at, and we know the business of it, and what hours and whatever they have going on, then yes, you're gonna be the same way. You're gonna be concerned too. So I was concerned for my safety. I had never seen that vehicle, so yes,
You were concerned for your safety, Ms. Jenkins?
I was.
Why did you say that in the 911 call?
I said I felt uncomfortable. That was good enough.
Uncomfortable is different than feeling unsafe.
It's all the same.
Okay. Did anyone tell you that insurance companies send private investigators to watch people?
Yeah, they have mentioned it to me, but it really didn't dawn on me until last after I left that room. I saw you sitting over there. Once I went where I was going, I got back, and what made me suspect what was going on was because when I came back in a different vehicle, you did not notice it was the vehicle I guess that you're supposed to be looking for. So you took it upon yourself to try to come out of the church yard behind me, and you gave me time to back up my other vehicle up on my car porch. When I backed up on my car porch, what did you do? You rode past my house, looked over, went down the road, and turned around. Did you?
Is it illegal to drive by your house and look at your house?
No, you made it suspicious. There is a difference. If you had went on down and just went on around or however you want to do it, you did not do that. You went down, you passed by my house, you looked over, you can't say you didn't, you looked over at my home, you went down, turned around at that little road, and came right back and sat at the same place that you were sitting at. So yes, I'm fixing to call the police because you didn't have been doing it.
Is Draper Street a private street?
It's not being no private street. It's the point of the people that stays on that street pretty much know each other. And if we feel like something is going on, they don't contact the police. But I saw it first, and that's the only reason why I got a chance to call the police first.
I'm trying to, I guess, ask, is it illegal for me to drive down your street and look at your house?
I didn't say that.
Okay. Did you ever see the driver exit the vehicle?
No, I did not see you exit the vehicle.
Did you ever see any activity by the person in the vehicle?
No, but for you to be a private investigator, why would you even allow me to see your arm hanging out the window? If you're a private investigator.
What did the driver do after he drove by and looked at your house?
You went down, turned around, and went back to the church and sat again. And you sat in an angle where you could watch whatever coming out my yard, in my yard, or out my front door. Was it you? Thank you.
Isn't it true that you stated in your 911 call that you thought that the vehicle was related to your workman's comp claim?
I did. I sure did. Once I came back, I know, you waited hours. You sat there all those hours. You made it obvious, and yes, I felt unsafe. Whether you was working with workers' comp or not, you should have been in nobody's surrounding where they have to live. And that's my safety, that's my home. If you wanted to watch, you could have went somewhere else and watched me. Now, Your Honor, if I'm out of line, then you stop me. But I'm here to tell what I feel about this whole situation. You might have got hired by them, but it's a way that you can do stuff. And when you come close to my home, where I have to pay, where me and my grandkids be at, yes, I'm gonna call the police every time, and I appreciate them for coming out. Now, if you wanna dock me for that, you can dock me for that. My case is closed anyway.
Ms. Jenkins, I'm not interested in your workman's comp claim.
Well, I don't know what you're interested in, but it doesn't even matter no more because you violated. You didn't have no man coming around my home.
Is that a public neighborhood?
My home is public. If you see on my door of my home, it say no trespassing. You don't. What you coming around somebody's home for anyway? If you investigating, move around, and for you to just sit at a location that you know you don't know something out of the ordinary is going on, that's wrong with you. You won't want nobody to see in your neighborhood.
Did I come onto your property?
It doesn't matter. You was near it.
Did I come onto your property?
You didn't, but you was near it.
So I stayed on a public street?
It It does not matter. You went in a public church and that church is closed on Saturdays. They open on Sundays, and we know when they got work going on because we'll see the little work trucks down there. We know the difference. But honey, you were sitting there with your arm out the window.
Is it illegal to have an arm out the window?
Well, you say you're a private investigator. I ain't think I'll show your face.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were in fear of getting caught doing something which exceeds your medical restrictions,
It
correct?
was recorded. I wasn't doing this. I got out of it. I came out of my door, got in the car, left that morning, went by the door, came back, parked, got out my car. That's not illegal, baby. I wasn't lifting nothing, I wasn't toting nothing. So whatever you recorded, it is what it is. But I'm just telling you, you would have made anybody feel uncomfortable if they had seen an unknown vehicle just parked there.
What did the occupant of the truck do that made you fearful of anything?
You got nothing sitting there.
I'm sorry?
You didn't have no business sitting there.
So me sitting
When I
there made
left-
you fearful?
Let me tell you something. When I left, and look how long it was. You're the private investigator, you saw it. I was gone almost 2 hours and something, and you still was sitting there with your same little arm out the window. So when I come back, yes, sir, I'm finna try to figure out who you are now because you're not finna make me feel unsafe. You're not gonna make my grandchildren feel no type of way. None of that. When they see you on upset, they're gonna get upset. But again, like I said, if you want to investigate people, find an area where you can't investigate. You don't come here to make them feel unsafe and stressful.
So your concern was you just didn't want to be watched, did you?
I didn't care who watched me or not. They go somewhere to watch me.
Then why did you call
I
the
was
police?
going, so you should have watched me. But don't come around my home, I have to pay my money.
So it doesn't make any more noise. That's fine. It'll go. I can just put them on.
You subpoenaed me
You're fine.
I
You
did.
subpoenaed
No
me
problem. Okay, thanks.
as a witness,
I did.
and that was fine. But I'm telling everybody how I felt about the whole situation. Because you subpoenaed me for what reason?
No one likes to be watched do things to you.
Well, it's okay, you can watch me. No, they don't want to be watched.
So you stated I was sitting there for a few hours, right?
Child, more than a few hours, yeah.
Why didn't you call the police then? Why'd you wait a few hours to call the police?
Because I had to see was you gonna still be sitting there when I come back. And lo and behold, you was there.
But if you were so in fear of your life, then shouldn't you have called immediately?
Like I said, when I was leaving, that's when I noticed your vehicle, honey. So no, I was not gonna call in, but if you was sitting there when I got back, I called my mom, them, talked to them about it. Yes, I'm finna watch you now. You sitting there for a reason. You might have got hired for whatever situation you had to get hired for. But don't come around my home. That's one thing you're not gonna do. I'm gonna call the police every time. When you come around my home playing with my privacy, yes, sir, I'm gonna call the police.
Okay, so you're saying if somebody's watching you, you're gonna use the
It ain't got
police?
nothing to do with nobody watching nothing. That could've, even if it wasn't you, it could've been another vehicle. If I had to send it over there, I'm gonna call the police because I'm used to staying over there and I'm used to not knowing. I mean, I see stuff that go on, but they don't be just sitting there posted up like you was.
So would you agree there was no immediate concern about this vehicle sitting there?
How? How was anybody? Some of those are elderly people sitting like right there in the area. You done did whatever you had to do. You know, there's no, I'm probably the youngest one on that in that little circle right there by the church. So you know they wasn't gonna be able to notice nothing anyway, because some old people don't really come out like that. And you do know this.
Do you agree that you called the police because someone could be following you due to your current pending claim?
I called the police for being uncomfortable, and I stated that it could be because of my workers' comp claim. Don't try to put nothing in there.
Okay, so you...
Pickering.
Oh, no, ma'am, I'm not. I'm just asking questions about your 911
Don't add
call.
nothing to it, because I know what I said in that thing. We all heard what I said. If I feel uncomfortable, you keep talking about I did it. Uncomfortable and not safe is the same thing, baby. The same thing that they taught you in school.
Okay. If you felt unsafe, why didn't you call?
21, we're not here about a criminal trespass, we're not here about stalking. The elements, yes, are different for criminal trespass and for stalking, but that's not why we're here. 16.5-21 clearly gives the police department the authority to ask a citizen to move away from a public place, to not remain, to not loiter. So they clearly have that authority, which they tried to do with you, Mr. Pickron. Basically, as I see it, they just wanted you to leave. They just wanted you to leave. It sort of escalated for whatever reason. But the facts are that you were in a public parking lot where it is not usual for law-abiding citizens to be, because the church was closed, there were no other vehicles. And it did cause justifiable and reasonable alarm to the young lady, forgetting her name now, that testified, Ms. Jenkins. To the point where she called my number and reported it. And of course, the officer didn't hear her phone call. He was just dispatched, so he had limited facts, and he was there to investigate. He approached your vehicle, asked for your ID, asked you what you were doing there. It would have been a lot better if instead of saying you were chilling, you would have said from the get-go, I'm a private investigator, I'm here doing my job, I'm just trying to get the job done. And working for a company and that sort of thing. The officer has this dispatch call. He testified that there's concern about churches being vandalized. He testified that he could not verify your ID, your investigator ID. And for all those reasons, and the fact that there was someone that, and the witness testified that not only was she in fear for her, not only did she feel uncomfortable, but she felt like she was in fear for her safety. And she was very believable. I believe her. I don't think she was, an alarmist or just saying something just to cause you or anybody else a problem or to unfairly take up the police department's time. But I think the police officer followed procedure. He followed protocol. He asked you all the right questions, and he tried to make it such that it can end well for both of y'all by doing his job and by not having to arrest you. He gave you an opportunity to leave, and you didn't leave, and so there wasn't a whole lot else. He has the authority to ask you to leave. You refused to leave, so we're basically in a standoff. What else could you do? What else could you do? I wish you had left. I wish you had left because you were doing a job. And I understand that, but the circumstances surrounding the whole thing, led to this and became this kind of problem. I do find you guilty of loitering. The fine is $150. The court costs are $50. Can you pay that today?
I can. Can you use my bond?
Oh, you have cash bond?
I think it's cash bond.
You sure do have a cash bond. So that bond will be applied to the loitering charge, and I won't charge you court costs, we'll just do the $150 for the loitering charge.